Cassandra and her Cloud Spire team. Burning rubber circuits gleam. Racing through.
All right.
Today. Magic powers lead the way. Who will win? Who will fall? Aether Drift calls to them all. Ready and his goblin crew.
Oh, hi there. Just going back through some old tapes I have. You know, I love in the early 2000s how Wizards of the Coast was just putting out show after show of Magic the Gathering, animated, live action, the movie that they produced in 2008. It's really cool to see a game like Magic branch out into these other mediums. And I gotta say, Etherdrift, it's probably one of my favorite. I know it's polarizing, the whole casting spells on motorcycles, but I think that the depth of storytelling and the characters that they introduce and the way that they progress the overall storyline of Magic, it's just really powerful and it's exciting and it's got like an energy to it that I think some of the other shows don't have. I mean, don't get me wrong, the original Weatherlight cartoon, like the theme song with the Weatherlight, saving Dominaria tonight, battling creatures left and right, the Weatherlight. It just sticks in your head, you know, it's got that like earworm quality. And I really like that. But today I want to talk about kind of Magic the Gathering's history with other mediums and the way that it's branched into a variety of different presentations. I think that's really driven its popularity for the last 30 years. So let's start with a little bit of history. In the early 90s, when Magic was first coming out, there wasn't really a story. You had your 5 colors of Magic, and each one had their own kind of general themes and ideas and mechanics, and you could mix and match as you wanted to make a deck that really played the way that you wanted it to play. It was a cool asymmetrical game style that hadn't really been seen before. But after a couple of years, new sets started to be released that each had their own theme, their own characters, their own style, their own art, and their own plane of existence. All of a sudden, that multiverse starts to appear. And it makes more sense to start introducing storylines. And so over the years, Wizards of the Coast started putting stories to the sets. One of my favorite story arcs begins with Brothers' War and spans many sets, ending with Apocalypse in 1999 or 2000. It was right around there. And around that time, when they reached that conclusion of this huge story that they were telling, Wizards of the Coast wanted to go beyond. They wanted to make something beyond novels, because the audience that the novels were reaching was almost the same as the audience that the cards were reaching. So they reached out to a couple different studios and started work on a animated TV series. The series followed the story of the Weatherlight crew from this storyline, and it was a wild success. It was aimed at a little bit older audiences than some of the other trading card related cartoons, and so people, I think, really latched onto it as a more complex storytelling, a more mature representation of some of these characters that they'd may or may not have read about in the books. And obviously, storyline-wise, the books are a little bit different than what you see on the cards, and the animated series is a little bit different than what you see in the books. But I think that was also exciting for some people that were involved in all 3 areas of this, to see these different looks at the same story. And so with the wide success of the animated series, it spawned multiple follow-on series on other networks even. And all of a sudden, the popularity of Magic and the audience and community that surrounded it just expanded rapidly. I feel like in the early 2000s, you couldn't go anywhere without seeing Magic. Whether that was the show, or the music, or the books, or the game, or the movie that came out later was really cool. Some of the live action stuff that they did was a little bit schlocky because obviously the quality of special effects just weren't really there for what was trying to be developed, but it was awesome to see them try. I think people really got to see the world of Magic from outside of just the trading card game. I think people loved Magic for the world of Magic. We still at the LGS get people coming in that ask for certain characters or certain cards or just crack packs to kind of experience the hype, try to get pulls and see some of the stuff that they're familiar with. You know, frequently people say, yeah, I used to collect Magic cards back when I was a kid, but I never really understood the rules. And so it's more of a collectible thing to me, but I love it. I love the style. The artwork is amazing. And then the characters are just like, have a nostalgic element to it from those early days. There's a lot of people that come in and ask for Urza cards, and we have to have the conversation about how there's not very many Urza cards that have been printed, and most of them are fairly expensive. So there's that sticker shock conversation as well. But I think it's awesome to see people be excited about the game itself. And then obviously we can't forget about the video games that came out. In the early 2000s, you had a couple like Magic Battlegrounds was a pseudo RTS RPG style game where you level up your characters and kind of build out your armies. You summon new creatures and do all of that. So it was kind of adjacent to the card game, but wasn't really playing with the cards themselves like Chandelar and some of those other older games that came out around that time. And then you had other games that went beyond that and just had other character aspects and IP tie-ins that were kind of cool. All of this obviously culminating in 2021 with Magic Legends, the MMO, where you finally got to step into the shoes of a Planeswalker, and I think they did a great job of really allowing you to play the way that we envision Planeswalkers, where you collect spells from different planes and you can decide how you want to build out your repertoire to really represent you. The developers were really good at listening to the community and kind of adjusting the game to make sure that everybody got the experience, that they've been clamoring for decades. And it was just really exciting to see that community build up, the community events and just the interaction between Wizards of the Coast and people in real time in this space where you can really custom build whatever you want and experience the world of Magic. I think all of these things are really effective at drawing you in and getting you excited about Magic beyond the cards. The world itself, the characters, the style, the themes. You become a part of it. It's not just about playing the card game. It's not just about what is mechanically best. It's about the world itself. And I think that's really cool. And that's why I love that Wizards of the Coast expanded the world of Magic to bring new people into the game. The TV shows, the video games, the stories, the characters. It's really cool to see the community of Magic span so many different interests and so many different types of people. Or maybe that was another game. Maybe there was a different game that had TV shows and movies and video games and other mediums. Maybe Wizards of the Coast didn't really do any of that. Maybe that's why they have to lean so heavily on external IPs anytime they want to grow their player base. But can you imagine if they did? If all of that was real? If they did have TV shows and movies and a fan base of the world of Magic beyond the game? Maybe someday.
Saving Dominaria tonight, battling monsters left and right. The Weatherlight, where goblins and slivers roam, flowstone creatures far from home. But our heroes don't back down. With magic and swords they stand there.